Okay, welcome everybody. We will tell you what is Euroguidance. My colleague will presentate the Dutch framework, and we have a special guest from Ireland who will presentate the Irish framework. In between, there's always room to ask questions. You will type your question and I will read out loud your question and our presentators will answer the questions. Okay, this is how we will work. You type, we will be visible the whole time. I will now would like to introduce my colleague Christine, and she will introduce herself.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me well and see me well. My name is Christine Clement. I work at CNOP and I'm the coordinator of the Euroguidance Center of the Netherlands. Oh. I hope you can see me now. Yeah. I would like to tell you a little bit about Euroguidance for the people who are not familiar with the program. Euroguidance is a program supporting internationalization of I can't see it, of the lifelong learning with respect to career guidance. Actually, it is a network of Euroguidance centers. There are in Europe 35 countries who are connected to Euroguidance. In each of those countries, we have a Euroguidance center. Euroguidance is financed by the European Commission, but also by the member states. So there is a co-financing system. Well, what you see here is one of this is the group of the Euroguidance people all over Europe. You see over 35 people. That is because in most of the Euroguidance centers there are more than one person working. We have meetings twice a year, and that's very important because one of the aims is to exchange knowledge about career guidance and about mobility. The main target groups of Euroguidance are the guidance practitioners as well as the policymakers, and that is both from the educational and the employment sectors. And also one of the aims is to make the connection between the guidance practitioners and the policymakers. And also the Euroguidance centers from all over Europe have two common goals. On one hand, to promote a European dimension in guidance. I will explain a little bit about what that means later, but also to provide very good quality information about lifelong guidance and mobility for learning purposes. Promoting European dimension in guidance, that is directed to, for instance, national guidance system and to strengthen them, and especially in the role of guidance in education. But also we want to stimulate the cooperation among different stakeholders in guidance, both on international and national level. And it also supports the international networking of guidance practitioners. On the other hand, providing quality information is another strong aim of Euroguidance. What we do is to collect and to exchange knowledge and to disseminate information on education and training and guidance systems all over Europe from the different member states, but also we exchange knowledge about innovative working methods and pilots and new project results, and also good practices, so we can learn from each other. That is the aim. Also, we provide information about EU initiatives and programs in the field, and we stimulate international mobility opportunities. One of the examples is a new part of the Euroguidance website. I would like to recommend you to take a look at the website www.euroguidance.eu. And if you take a look at the page of the guidance systems, you will find this picture of Europe with the different countries. If you click on one of those countries, you will see the information about the guidance system in that country. And that's a very new page, so I would like to recommend you to take a look. Then Euroguidance Netherlands, we work in a large team. The website is Euroguidance.nl. We all work at the organization CNOP. And here you see a picture of our team, and I'm very proud on all the things we do at Euroguidance Netherlands. So if you'd like to know more about it, I would like to recommend you to take a look at our website. If you have any questions about our work, please contact us. We are very happy to answer all your questions, and we are also always very happy to cooperate with different organizations. If you have any questions, please go ahead.
You can type in your question and it will arrive for us. In the meanwhile, I will show you a poll. Okay, here I am again. Hi there. I will show you a poll in the meanwhile. You can type your questions and I will show you a poll. Here's the poll. We would like you to fill in if you're a career guidance practitioner, a policymaker, a researcher, or a consultant, teacher, or something we didn't mention. %68% of our people filled in the poll, and I think that's because we didn't do it ourselves. So I will show you what's the collecting in progress. It's saying 93% has voted in the poll. Okay, I will close the poll now. If I'm correct, I can share it with you. Here it is. This is most of the people are something else than we thought you were, but we have almost a quarter who is researcher or consultant, a couple of career guidance practitioners, a policymaker on board, and probably 2 or more teachers who are listening to our webinar. So we are very pleased with you all. We go back to the program now. I'm looking at my colleagues if there arrived any questions for Christine. No? Okay. Thank you, Christine, for the introduction. Then I will give the word to my colleague Eva Maria. She's already here and ready for you, and she will present the Dutch framework. Okay, Eva Maria, if you can click on yes. You can speak already, but we can't see you yet. You also have to share your screen.
Yes. Yeah, it works for you. Hello, everybody. I'm Eva Maria Ternité. I'm the one who developed the framework together with my colleagues and together with actually a whole field of career guidance workers in the Netherlands. Let me first tell you why we did this. Well, in 2015, there had been a needs research on behalf of our Ministry of Education, Culture and Science. And the conclusion was there is a real need of clearness about what we are talking about when we speak about career guidance. And also that we need to initiate a discussion about career guidance and how we want to work on it and what we need to develop. And so by this discussion, we should develop a broadly supported framework. And well, once we have a list of competences and clear roles on career guidance, we can also make sure that there's a good connection between schools and the educators of the teachers. So we also hope to support and improve the education of career guidance practitioners, and also to make a better connection with the labor market. And so we decided to develop a framework for first only secondary school and vet education. And I just give you an overview how we worked on it. First, we looked up the sources which were available already, because of course we were not the first people who were thinking about this. And you see a big list on this screen. Probably the most of you have already seen this. You probably might have a look at had a look at the website already, and we also will have a look at it in a couple of minutes. Well, as you see, we used quite a lot of Dutch sources, but also some international sources, and the Irish framework, which is letter G, and letter F and H are European frameworks. The Panorama one is the one of CD4. Well, step 2 was to make a concept, but we preferred not to develop a new concept, but to continue on the existing concept, which was already used. There you see the 3 levels of practitioners, the teachers, tutors, or coaches, however you name them, the people who are directly working with the young people, the students or pupils, and the second level are the specialist guidance counselors, and the third, the staff members, policy makers or managers. And we described the 4 focus areas which we already were used to, which is the cooperation, the organization, the vision and policy, and the orientation and guidance, of course. And well, but as I said before, we also we initiated a big discussion with the whole field, and so the first concept we showed an advisory board. We got a lot of feedback, and so we went on several times. And here you see the whole list of advisory associations, which consist of students associations, teacher educators, scientists, and so on. I think you can also have a look at this later, or you see it in the preface of the framework. So we also want to take time to have a look at the framework itself, and also to tell about something around it. Well, I think most of you will already have had a look at this. I just wanted to take the opportunity to take you through the 4 parts of the framework. Well, we begin with vision and policy advice, and there you see the 3 roles I told you about. First, for the teachers, tutors, and coaches, the people who are working with the students, and then the specialist career, the guidance practitioners, and the staff members, the 3rd one. And if you look at the next page, you see the description of the expertise. And here, if you go into it specifically, you will see that the main task, of course, you find, or the most active tasks you will find in the lower rows, the 3rd role in this case. But if you go to education and guidance, there you find the same roles and also the descriptions on the next page. It's easier to say to see in the paper version, which you can order for free at our guidance center. And here you see that the most tasks, the most active tasks, are at the 1st role, of course, the teachers and tutors. But all of them do have a task, do have a role, and need to have expertise. Only while here in the more operative roles, the staff is thinking about how to organize this and how to give support to it, and the teachers are doing the practical conversations with the students. And if I go back to vision and policy, you see that we also suggest that teachers should take part in the discussion about the vision and policy. And of course, the staff members are initiating the discussions and also write the policy papers. So that's how the different roles are divided and is scripted. Yeah, and I hope you are not frightened when you see the long list of expertise. We had this discussion with the field when we talked with the schools in the country about this list. But in our preface, we also say that this is not a list of expectations. It's a list which should support teachers to grow. You know, it's been intentionally high, but this is the preferred situation to stimulate the growth of professionals. and it's in Holland, in the Netherlands. This is not compulsory. It's just meant to be paper. You can make use of it when you talk with the people, the guidance practitioners about their work and what they still need. Well, I get a sign that it's time for questions now. Now I'm very into the framework. Oh, no questions? Okay. Well, but it's time for you to tell your questions if you have those. Just take some time.
Okay, you can type in your questions if you have any questions to Eva Maria. Eva Maria, thank you very much for your presentation.
It was my pleasure.
We're looking. There's one arriving. I will read the question out loud, so Eva Maria can answer the question. I have a question here from Margit.
Ah, hello, Margit.
She's asking you, could you give any example how the framework is used by practitioners?
Well, it's a bit an early question because there are, until now, at least as far as I know, there are not so many practitioners really using it. But to be honest, I don't know how many are using it. But I contacted some of them, and they say they use it, well, actually how it's meant to be, as a list of a list which helps them to get aware how broad the career guidance task is. And also some practitioners also told me they use it as a kind of munition to, is that an English word? As a kind of a weapon to get in the discussion with their managers to get more time and more money for their guidance work. They give the list to the directors and say, well, look at this. If you see this, you might get a more realistic impression of our work. Yeah, as far as I know, until now, it's been used like that. Another question?
It's the same question from Margaret. It was a follow-up question. If there is not something to say now, if you have any expectations about this.
Yeah, that's also what I expect they will do. I think my answer would be quite the same then.
Okay. Thank you. We got a new question. From Ivana. How you decided to define tasks for these 3 specific roles? Are you able to answer this question?
Well, is the question more about the tasks or more about the roles? Oh, well,
okay. Then it's a bit difficult for her to answer because she has
Okay.
multiple answers. I
Well,
think from Eva Maria. Maybe we can give it a bit of time.
I can.
Oh, both would be useful. She
Okay.
said.
Okay. Well, the roles we have to decide how many roles we would describe, of course, because like you can see in the paper, because every school is using different words also for the roles, and it at different school types and also different schools among a sector, there had been used different the roles are differently filled out, and so we just decided to split it up in these 3 roles to make it workable. So in fact, this is quite a practical decision, but of course we consciously made the decision to divide between the practical workers who are working with the pupils and the specialists who are supporting them, and the staff members who have to decide where do we put our money.
Okay.
I hope this might answer your question.
Thank you. I hope so as well. And otherwise, we have time for questions for Eva Maria at the end of the presentation as well. So Eva Maria, thank you very much for your presentation again.
Welcome.
And I will now give Linda Darbey the word, and she will present the Irish framework. Yes, that's the one. Thank you very much. And now we will start officially. Here is Linda Darbey from Ireland. We're very happy to have you here in our webinar. And please share us your story about the framework in Ireland.
That's great, thank you. I'm delighted to be here this morning to talk to you about the Irish framework, which is a whole school guidance framework published in 2017. My name is Linda Darbey. I'm from the National Centre for Guidance in Education. And for some reason, I cannot actually move my presentation. So I'm going to give you an overview about NCGE, the National Centre for Guidance in Education, before I start. And then I'll talk very briefly about guidance in schools so that you have an understanding of where the framework came from and how it might be implemented. I'll then talk about the framework and then talk about some work we have done with schools as part of a pilot project. So about NCGE. NCGE is an agency of the Department of Education and Skills in Ireland. The aim of the centre is to support the development of guidance practice in educational settings. So essentially that is schools, further education and training colleges and higher education. We also have a role to advise and inform the policy of the Department of Education relating to guidance. Christine talked about the Euroguidance network earlier. NCGE also hosts the Euroguidance Ireland Centre, and I won't talk about what we do as part of that because I think that's already been covered. In terms of myself, my main responsibility in NCGE is to support guidance in schools. So that's informing policy development in schools, supporting the development of planning guidelines and frameworks, resources, and continuing professional development of guidance counsellors. So in terms of guidance in schools in Ireland, guidance is provided to students in post-primary schools or secondary schools, so students who are from the ages of 13 up to about 18. We have qualified guidance counsellors working in schools, and they are a registered teacher. So you have to be a qualified registered teacher before you can become a guidance counsellor in a school. There's a guidance counsellor in every school. Their hours will vary. Some of them are part-time and some of them are full-time. And in Ireland, we have a whole school approach to guidance. So all school staff have a role to play in the guidance process. So here is a screenshot of our framework. It's the cover. I do have a link to the framework at the end of my presentation, which I can share with you if you are interested. So why did we develop the framework? Well, we undertook a review of guidance counselling in second level schools and published the report in 2013. The review was undertaken in 2012, and we looked at the resourcing of guidance in schools as part of that review. So one of the recommendations of the review in the report was that NCGE convene a post-primary guidance working group, and that working group would look at developing a whole school guidance framework as a resource to schools. We had a number of stakeholders on that post-primary working group, including obviously NCGE, the Department of Education and Skills. We had practitioners represented through the Institute of Guidance Counsellors. We had principals and school management represented through the National Association of Principals and Deputy Principals. And we had an agency of the department, which is the National Educational Psychological Service, and also the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment on that group. The aim of the framework essentially that we developed is very much, as I said, it's a resource, and it's to support schools in meeting the requirement of the Education Act. So it's our legislation, which essentially says that schools have to provide all students with access to appropriate guidance. And appropriate guidance is a whole school response to meeting students' guidance needs. So essentially, it's a resource to support them in planning and implementing whole school guidance. In our framework, we present a continuum of support model for whole school guidance, and I'll talk a bit about this in my next few slides. And then also 3 areas of learning and associated competences. And again, I'll come back to these now in my next slide. So here is what we call the whole school guidance wheel. We thought it would be helpful for schools to have a visual representation of what guidance could look like in schools. So what is whole school guidance? Because there can be confusion out there about what is whole school guidance and who is involved. It'll vary from school to school depending on the resources that are available to the school. So it's really supposed to be flexible, but it's just to give an idea to schools about who might be involved and what personnel or what school staff may be involved in the delivery of guidance. So as you can see in the guidance wheel, we have guidance for all, we have guidance for some, and we have guidance for a few. So looking then at guidance for all, we have the 3 areas of learning in here, which is developing myself, developing my learning, and developing my career path. And for each of the 3 areas, there are a number of competences. There's 8 in total. You probably won't be able to read them here on the screen, but if you download the framework from our website, and the link is at the end of my presentation, you will be able to have a look at them in more detail. So the 3 areas of learning are intended to be offered to all students. So from students in years 1 to 6 in secondary education. And we drew on international work. So an example would be the Australian Career Development Framework. And there's a 4-stage continuum: acquire, apply, personalise and act, where there are different stages a student may be at. So the first stage is very much about learning, it's knowledge acquisition, and then the more, I suppose, advanced stage, you could call it, is acting. So it's knowledge transformation and creation. This is supposed to be flexible. Students will move back and forward along that continuum, and students will be at different stages. So in terms of guidance for all then, this part of the wheel, it's very much about guidance related learning in the classroom. In Ireland, we don't have a curriculum for guidance, so it's very much down to each individual school to decide what that looks like. But we've tried to give them an idea of what programs in the school and what personnel may link into each of these areas. This is a quick screenshot of the guidance learning outcomes presented in our framework. Again, you may not be able to read the detail of it, but you are very welcome to download the framework and have a look. It's to give you an example of what it looks like. So we have developing myself as the area of learning in this particular page, and we have junior cycle and senior cycle. Junior cycle is the first 3 years and senior cycle is the remaining 3 years. We have the 4-stage continuum of learning here, and then down on the left-hand column we have the different competences and then the associated learning outcomes for each competence. The idea of this is that schools can pick and choose, and they can actually look at what they're doing and if their students are achieving these learning outcomes. So it's supposed to be a resource. It's not compulsory or anything like that. It's supposed to support schools in identifying the learning for guidance in the school. So moving on to guidance for some. Guidance for some is very much that guidance that is offered to a specific group of students or specific year groups. So for instance, in Ireland, there's a big transition at the end of primary school education. Typically they're 12 years of age and they go into secondary, and for some students that can be challenging. So often I think all schools really have transition programs. So that's an example of guidance for some. It's not offered to every student in the school, but it's specific to certain groups of students. So it would include transition programs, it might include some psychometric testing, and there will be more qualified specific personnel involved in this who have been trained in particular areas. Guidance for a few then, as part of the continuum model, is more intensive support for students who may need it. So it's typically one-to-one or individual, or maybe small groups of career counselling, personal, social and educational counselling. Again, it will be by qualified personnel in the school, which will be the guidance counsellor, but some schools may also have other qualified personnel that can support the work of the guidance counsellor here. There is a personal counselling dimension in that some students may experience personal crisis in their lives at any point in time, and there's a space for them to meet the guidance counsellor individually if needed throughout their 6 years in school. At the very heart or the centre of the wheel, we have students' guidance needs, because essentially this is what it's all about. It's about the student and it's about meeting their guidance needs. We also have school management because of their leadership role, and the guidance counsellor because the guidance counsellor is a specialist due to their training and qualifications in the area. The pilot project then I mentioned earlier, we held a pilot project with 16 schools from January of this year until May. So we've just finished work with them as part of phase 1. And they were very much using the framework to work with junior cycle students only. So it provided them with the space to look at the students in the first 3 years of secondary school and to actually look at what is being provided by the school currently. So NCGE developed resources to support them in doing this. So the schools tested the implementation of the framework with junior cycle students using the resources we provided. We used a blended methodology to support schools. So we had 2 face-to-face workshops with all the schools. The schools had representatives from school management and the guidance counsellor present as well. We also had an online meeting, a bit like this, with the schools to connect in between because they were located all around the country. In terms of our next steps, we hope to have a conference in November where the schools, some of the schools will showcase the work that they have done as part of the pilot project. They did some really, really excellent work, and we believe that that should be shared with the entire school community so that they can benefit from it. So we will have a number of schools present at that conference in November. We will also probably continue work on a pilot project as well, maybe commencing in October. All the resources, I'll be working on them over the summer, will be published on the NCGE website. So if anybody is interested, I can certainly send you an email when they have been uploaded to the NCGE website over the summer. And that's really it from me. These are my contact details, and as I promised, there's a link to the framework as well. I hope you found this presentation useful, and if you have any questions, do please let me know. Thank you.
Linda, thank you very much for this interesting presentation of showing the Irish system. And you had quite a few very interesting visualizations. Thank you for that. And in the meanwhile, you were talking, we saw a question coming in, and I'm not sure in which part of your presentation it exactly was, but the question is from Helene, and she was asking, do these professionals work also as a teacher in schools or just in guidance?
Hello, Helene. Yes and no. It really, really depends. You may remember that I mentioned that some schools have full-time guidance counsellors, and if a guidance counsellor is working full-time, they have full-time hours for guidance only. In the event that a school has part-time hours for guidance, so maybe 11 hours a week, typically the guidance counsellor, because they're a teacher, will be working full-time in the school, but they may be teaching French or German or English or maths for the other 11 hours, depending on their contract. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. If not, please type your question again towards my colleagues. I will read out loud another question. This one is from Marlene. She's writing, in the wheel, there is a difference between all, some, and few. Means all, that all teachers are professionalized in guidance tasks, guidance conversations.
Hello, Marlene. I didn't go into the detail about, the different members of staff in the school because of time constraints, but very, very briefly, in Ireland, we would have different programmes available in schools. So a typical one, which is compulsory up until the end of third year, it's called Social, Personal and Health Education. And we call this SPHE. So there's an SPHE teacher in the school. And in terms of a whole school approach to guidance, they have a curriculum which very closely, I suppose, aligns with developing myself, which is all about personal learning and social learning. So there's overlap there between developing myself that we have here in the framework and the role of the SPHE teacher. So typically the guidance counsellor and the SPHE teacher would work together in planning personal and social development because you don't want duplication and overlap. So that's just a small example of one member of staff in the school that would have a contribution to make. There are other school staff members which could be specific to some schools, such as the school chaplain. Not all schools would have a school chaplain, but a school chaplain can also be qualified to work with students in a pastoral care or a personal counselling role. if you want to contact me with more questions after the webinar, I'd be happy to address them. But that's it,
Okay.
really, just very briefly.
Thank you. I think that's a good idea because I'm looking at the time. It's 12:05. And I have a few extra interesting questions for you, from Margit, from Helene, about the pilot, about career guidance counselors, for you more. But before we come back to you for these questions, I will give the word to Christine for some concluding remarks, and I will show you a poll again with another question for everybody. Dus please stand by, Linda. Thank you very much. I will firstly show the poll, or do you want to give your wrap up first? First, the wrap up. Just a moment, please. Bye, Linda, for now. We'll see you back later.
Bye.
We see the screen already. And now you no, not yet. We not hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. You're here.
Hello, good to be back again. I really enjoyed those both presentations of Eva Maria and Linda. What I've been doing to prepare the wrap up of both presentations was to try to find similarities between both frameworks, and I noticed that there are many similarities. First of all, of course, the target group for both frameworks. We heard that both the frameworks are directed to young persons and, of course, to schools, and the main aim is to provide resources and support for the schools. In both cases, the frameworks are not compulsory. And it is important to notice that both frameworks are can be used to pick and choose whatever you need. We see that in both frameworks that are long lists of expectations. Well, we have high expectations of our practitioners in Ireland and in the Netherlands, of course. But also it is important to try to understand that that is meant for the stimulation of the quality of guidance in both countries. And another similarity, of course, is that there are pilots run in both countries. In the Netherlands, we have a pilot running on 3 schools. And in Ireland, you are ahead of us, isn't it? You have pilots already in 16 schools. And it is something what struck me most. I'm very interested to know more about the pilot in Ireland. And Linda, I would love to know whether you have already a report on those pilots, and if you can share information on that too, that would be lovely. So that's the wrapping up as far as I'm concerned, and I would like to give the floor back to Jetske.
Okay, thank you. Then I would like to ask you to fill in a poll again. How would you like to use the Dutch and Irish framework in your country? Okay, 1/4 of you already voted in this. Yes, half of you already voted in this. Thank you for giving your vote. I give you a few more. I will close the voting now. I will share you the results. And it looks like that most of you will use this information about the Dutch and Irish framework in your country as an inspiration for development. So we're very curious about this, of course. We can share it with each other. So don't hesitate to contact us after this webinar. I will now put into view Eva Maria, Christine and Linda. So we can have a last round of questions. So everybody who is still interested in hearing the answers on these questions, you can still be on board. And for everybody who has another appointment right now, I would really like to thank you for your attention. And you will receive a survey afterwards. Okay, Christine can talk already. I will close the poll first, sorry. Okay, we need Eva Maria on board. And Christine. Okay, the questions I received are for Linda. Marleen gave us a reaction. And she told us the question is of all teachers have a role in the whole school approach. So she was reacting on her own question and your response on that. So she put in a new question, Linda. She wants to know if all teachers have a role in the whole school approach.
Yes, but that will depend on the school, and it's, you know, something that will be discussed at school level as part of whole school guidance planning. I mean, an obvious example of where, you know, all school staff would have a role would be in relation to subject choice. So in Ireland, there will be key stages where students would choose subjects. First year in secondary schools, and then typically fourth or fifth year in secondary schools as well. So subject teachers there would have a role to talk to students about their subjects and the skills that the students can develop as part of the subject and where they might go with that. So that's an example, or maybe study skills or examination techniques. So that's all guidance as we see it, whole school guidance. So that's I hope is a clear example of how different members of staff in the school would have a role in the guidance process.
Okay, thank you. We got a quick response from Helene, and she said it was clear for her. So thank you very much for this answer. I got another question for Linda from Margaret. She typed it while you were presenting, while your presentation was running. She's writing, I would like to know more about the pilot. How do they use the framework during about 4 months?
Hi, Margaret. I'll try to answer this very briefly because I could talk for a long time on this, but it may be best for you to connect with me after the webinar at some stage, and I'll talk to you about it. But what we did was we asked the schools to work with the first 3 years of secondary only, because we felt it'd be too much work otherwise in such a short time frame. And we developed resources which included checklists and student questionnaires. And it was about looking at what is already happening in the school, using the framework as a reference guide. So in terms of maybe the learning outcomes in the framework, we were asking schools, are you doing this? If yes, who's involved in the delivery of these learning outcomes in the school? So that's a very, very simple example of, you know, some of the activities that we invited the schools to undertake in the schools.
Okay, thank you. We can see all the reactions from everybody, and there are quite a lot of positive reactions with clear, now okay, happy to connect. These are all mentioned for Linda and for Eva Maria. If you have any questions left for Eva Maria, Christine, or Linda, please be in contact with us via the website Euroguidance NL. Thank you for listening to us, to our webinar. Maybe you noticed it was a trial, and we are very happy that everybody was able to speak to you, and that we received all these questions, and that you participated in the polls. Thank you for that, and we will end the webinar right now. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.